The core of the MAGA movement is integralist. That is the flavor of fascism they believe in. This is not a groundbreaking observation, because it doesn't change the fact that there are indeed Nazis within and without the movement, and that doesn't change the fact that the slave catchers are back in the streets. But I do want to talk about integralism, not just because there are important distinctions here that are worth noting, but because there are two flaws that come with thinking what America is going through is Nazism. One, this line of thinking is dismissive, because it neglects the fact that the Nazis were directly inspired by Jim Crow's America. So much so that after the war, America deliberately made the definition of genocide narrow enough to avoid being labeled as genocidal for what it was doing to black people. ICE isn't simply the Gestapo, it is Jim Crow's America. And two, the idea of a Nazi is inseparable from the notion that democracy can and will prevail in the end. And as a result, even the most grounded, yet pessimist depiction of what is happening in America has this sense of democratic false hope to it. When the reality is, you simply cannot get rid of integralism in the same way that you can get rid of a Nazi. Let's unpack first what integralism is, how it differs from Nazism, and why this distinction makes it worse than Nazism in my eyes. Integralism at its core is about reverting to a time before the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was a shift from a world ruled by aristocracies, theocracies, and absolute monarchies, where everything from the law to land ownership is attributed to and dictated by them. We entered a world dictated by a scientific and rational pursuit of justice, democracy, and freedom. This movement led to the birth of the nation-state and the idea that nationality is tied to a place of birth. It valued intellectualism and self-determination, which progressively made society secular and science-based. Or in other words, the Enlightenment took religion, culture, and traditional family values out of the foundations from which we built society and replaced them with science, democracy, and secularism. Integralists wanted to undo that and return to a world where the way of the land is dictated by your cultural and religious values through the traditionalist preservation of such values. This makes integralism astonishingly religious. Nazism sought to ultimately subordinate the church and then replace it with the cult of the Nazi state. At the same time, it embarked in esoteric paganism on the side and even created its own version of atheism. Italian fascists, on the other hand, put religion on a chokehold and pushed the clergy out of political affairs so it could portray themselves as the protectors of the faith when in fact much of their leadership, including Mussolini himself, were atheists. Integralism is concerned with religion in a much more intimate way, because their version of cohesion isn't something that begins with and stops at having Aryan blood. They want cultural, religious, and national homogeneity. Although every single fascist regime is racist and ethnically egalitarian, integralism is much less about race and ethnicity than Nazism. We tend to look at how diverse the alt-right got over the years, and we think of it as then adapting to the times, when the reality is integralism adapted to the times almost 100 years ago. In integralist fascist Spain, the non-white Moroccans were used as a decisive force to finish the Civil War, although their role was downplayed back at home for the sake of Spanish unity. In integralist fascist Brazil, we proudly sent our black soldiers to fight in Italy. We proudly let them pose for the photos and get back home. While America tried everything to hide the fact that they even had black people in their army. Brazil takes pride on diversity so much, even our biggest fascist bigots are black and proud of it. There is a saying we have here today, the notion that we are neither black nor white, "We are Brazilians," which is an old piece of integralist fascist propaganda that stands strong till this day. MAGA is still largely racist, and American society is still extremely racially egalitarian. But diversity is a strength, even in hatred. The fact you had Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, and Latinos for Trump deeply involved in MAGA is not simply a sign of political pandering to minorities. It is a sign of integralism, because this flavor of fascism has a complex relationship with race. While integralism has always been Catholic nationalist, American integralism is Protestant fundamentalist, which leads us to one of the final pieces that allows me to conclude MAGA is integralist. Integralism in the 21st century is expressed through hatred and disregard towards the legislative, the judiciary, and the executive, as long as their guy is not the one in charge. In Brazil, over the past 6 to 8 years, integralist Bolsonaro supporters systematically attacked members of Brazil's legislative, and on January 8th, 2023, they stormed federal government buildings, including the presidential palace, after Bolsonaro lost the re-election, which he claimed was rigged, all the while begging the military to assassinate the judges and install another dictatorship like that of Vargas, who's an idol of theirs. And the military almost did it, as the fascist political elite tried and failed to gather enough military support to stage a coup. All of this echoes the "Hang Mike Pence" chant that reverberated through the Capitol walls during the January 6th insurrection, and it mirrors the way MAGA celebrates the array of unlawful actions the Trump regime has been taking, because disregard for institutions is part of a core expressed integralist dogma, and in America it goes hand in hand with religious fundamentalism, because the faith of MAGA is not with the institutions, is not with the rule of law, and it is not with the democratic ideals this world or the country were built under. Their faith is with God. If you were born in America and you were a young churchgoer in the 90s, especially in the South, I am very confident in saying your pastor probably told you not to trust the government and its institutions, while alluding to some sort of violent incoming struggle between the state and the God-fearing people. And if you continued going to church, I am very sure that you and your church-going folks went through 9/11 3 times. Once when Waco happened, once on 9/11, and once Obama was elected. In Brazil, the core talking point of integralism is once again the notions that we are not black or white, we are Brazilian. The government is a piece of shit. Brazil was better when it was an empire. In America, the core talking point of integralism is the notion that the government is going to take away your guns. The government hates the traditional family. The government obstructs your God-given rights as an American. Those colloquial phrases seem innocuous and innocent enough, but they reveal the integralist revisionist sentiment where the atrocities of the past are seen as glory and not as mistakes. For the integralists, the time of greatness is as far back and as close to before the Enlightenment as we can possibly go. Nazism reveals its ugly head. It is easy to identify, while integralism doesn't hide in plain sight. It simply exists around us, and it is found in a collection of ideals that are a constant part of our political discourse, and that at face value are just conservative ideals. It is when you apply praxis, a populist movement, and a demagogue to it, that these ideals come together and get expressed through fascism. You can get rid of the regime, you can get rid of the movement, and you can get rid of the demagogue, but you cannot get rid of these ideals. One of the consequences of neglecting to see how integralist America is that you end up brushing things off as a case of ignorance or stupidity. Take anti-vaxxers, for example. Anti-science thought seems to be a core integralist value, presumably because scientific thought is a core value of the Enlightenment. What anti-vaxxers reject is not vaccines per se, it is the structural science of nation building. Their disregard towards science is a disregard towards the pragmatic, scientific machinery that we call the government. They reject the authority of foreign reason in favor of the authority of familiar sensibilities, something that will continue to happen for generations to come, as the youth of today is already inclined to disregard the state and its experts. A shocking number of young people were anti-vaxxers during the pandemic, and that is the same youth that is absolutely unbothered by Trump's and RFK Jr.'s Tylenol autism bullshit of today. The youth already just left that whole thing off from one conservative podcast episode to another. That is the same youth that will do nothing but joyfully laugh when tomorrow feminism is officially declared to be a mental disorder. There's a video going around of a Trump supporter saying Trump is the closest thing to God. That is a very old video, but as bizarre as that might be, that makes sense. This is not a delusion. That is textbook integralism, because to the integralist, the fascist demagogue is the one bringing the people and the nation closer to God. These people are not crazy. They are not poor bastards who were manipulated into voting a certain way. They are integralists. It is dismissive to laugh at MAGA and call it a cult, because you know what we do to cults? Nothing. We stay the hell away from them until the state deals with them, or they deal with themselves. When you think of MAGA as crazy cult members, you are inclined to do exactly that. Nothing, apart from letting the state, meaning the Democratic opposition, deal with it. And you don't need me to tell you how ineffective and controlled the opposition has been. Are they dealing with it? The reasons why I think integralism is worse than Nazism are as followed. Nazi regimes last an average of 12 to 15 years. They are expansionists, which means that they piss enough people off to the point where someone comes in and fucking kills them. Integralist fascist Spain was a 36-year-long regime, while Brazil had 2 dictatorships that lasted a total of 21 years, and then an attempted coup in 2023, meaning this flavor of fascism has been an infectious disease of ours for over 80 years. The way that Spain, Brazil, and to some extent Portugal got rid of integralism reveals just how much difficulty America will have to get rid of this. This is one of the reasons why I think it is still a little bit informative for you to be aware of what integralism is. There are 2 things these countries did that allowed their democracies to heal. They have joined the international community and they restructured their government. Spain reformulated its branches of government and created multiple new institutional bodies, while entering the European Economic Community and later on the European Union and NATO. It went through a massive democratization campaign and joined the West in their ideological standstill against communism, while Brazil went through a period of uncertainty and stagnation until it reformed its monetary system and went through a series of socialist reforms that lifted people out of poverty and hunger and allowed the country to become what it is today, despite still having to deal with integralism. So to defeat this kind of fascism, historically speaking, one must join something and aggressively reform. The question is, what is America going to join once it elects another Democrat? The UN? What neoliberal economic miracle and what grand-standing ideological battle is there in the horizon to bring a wave of democratization to America that can lift the country off of fascism like it happened in Spain. And what is America going to change? Can you realistically see any meaningful constitutional reform bringing in another 4 constitutional amendments? While maybe taking another 1 or 2 amendments out, can you see a future in which America as we know it makes political campaign donations completely illegal? One where it is illegal for members of the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary to own stocks. Can you see a reform put in place to reduce the power of the executive in order to avoid another fascist demagogue from taking power? Because this is what meaningful change would look like. Another Democrat will come in, and what do you think he's going to do? Apologize to NATO, increase the funding for the institutions Trump has gutted, and maybe decrease ISIS budget a little bit. The economy gets better, the country is back to its neoliberal normalcy, and then what? America has nothing to join, and its government operates under the notion of resisting change. That's what makes your situation worse than Nazi Germany. Nazism will push things to the point you have no choice but to fight back. You can see a Nazi, you can kill a Nazi. It is autarkic and expansionist enough to anger people into killing it. Integralism operates within the frames of conservative sensibilities. It is persistent, it is long-lasting, it is isolationist. It has 80 years of continuous existence in Brazil alone. It can still be found in Spain till this day, and although the Nazis do exist, and they do have an influence and a role played in everything that is happening in America right now, the average MAGA fascist is integralist. This is not groundbreaking information, but if you think a blue wave is all America needs to defeat fascism and the country can simply continue to be exactly as it is, that doesn't sound very helpful either.
So you guys, me, Thomas, and my mom were outside. We're going to the Speedway, we're getting scratch tickets, and we were seeing if we could win money for scratch tickets for the video. And my fucking mom ruined it, and she threw out my ticket in the fucking gutter!
I bought the ticket. You said I was gonna win, and I'd get the
You
money.
liar!